What's up, everybody? Dev Del Molino back here today doing what I will call a multi-review. There have been a few albums that people have either requested me to review, or there's been albums that I myself have wanted to take a look at and just haven't given a full solo review to them. So I thought I would group up 3 albums today and put them all in one video and just kind of give brief thoughts to them all and share them with you guys. Now, the first album I want to talk about is from a new rapper who is doing his debut album that dropped 2 or 3 weeks ago. His name is JID, The Never Story, his debut album that just dropped. Now, if you never heard of this guy, and I'm assuming that you haven't, he's from East Atlanta, Georgia. And the other cool thing about him is that he is the newest Dreamville signee. And so if you don't know who owns and operates Dreamville Records, that would be J. Cole. That being said, that is a rather significant cosign in today's game, and I think he's very deserving of it. First off, I want to start by saying that he himself as an artist has an interesting lane that he has chosen to diverge in. There are several influences in his style. You can tell he's kind of a student of the game. He has some pretty strong Outkast influence, being from East Atlanta. And it's kind of funny because, before I knew he was from Atlanta, my guess was that he was from New Orleans or generally from the South because of the Lil Wayne influence that I was hearing. Particularly on one track, Louder, there's a really just straight up young Lil Wayne Hot Boys flow that he rides with pretty much that entire time. It's very reminiscent of 30,000 Bars that Lil Wayne came with around, Carter 1, Carter 2 era when he stopped writing his lyrics. And again, I really like this dude's style mostly because of the fact that a lot of the people that we hear coming from the Atlanta area and the people who are garnering the most success from that section of hip hop are people that are not doing it by the way of lyrics. JID is not necessarily in that same boat. He may not be necessarily rapping about anything of significance, but you can tell the way he puts his words and his rhymes together that he's an extremely talented lyricist. And the other thing is that his flow is aggressive. He'll get at a beat and he'll just ride that thing out, and it's fun to listen to him rap. It's a little raw in some spots because he's new to the game and this is his first real look at this level of success in hip-hop, but there are the things in this album and in him as an artist that I want to see from a new artist. First being that, I think he has a lot of personality and he has a lot of his own style that I can kind of grab onto when I'm listening to his music. He does a really good job of explaining who he is, where he's from, what he's about, and grabbing your ear with a voice that is distinct. Again, I can kind of liken him to a young Lil Wayne. The other nice thing about him that I like hearing from new artists is not only hearing the potential in a new artist, but having something that is tangible in this first project that I can rock with right away. Something that hits the mark right away. So, if you're just trying to get a taste of this new artist or the album and you don't want to necessarily listen to all of it right away, some of my favorite tracks are Division is a really boom bappy, hard hitting cut. And again, you'll get to hear his lyricism real early and strong with this song. Underwear is another track that has a pretty fun Matthew McConaughey sample in it, and just kind of is a more vibrous track. And there's a song called Ed, Ed, and Eddie, which, the reference in itself makes me happy, and the song itself is just this really cool, mischievous, low-key cut, and one that's definitely cool to just kind of ride around in the whip to. Now, the next album that we're going to review is the new Rick Ross album, Better You Than Me, and shout out to my Uncle Slim, by the way, for asking me to review this album. I'm actually a pretty big Rick Ross fan and have liked his music for a long time. Something about this album just was not grabbing me, and the anticipation for the album just wasn't really roping me in. But once I got into it, I kind of remembered why I like Rick Ross so much, and the sound that I get on this album is the kind of sound I like from Rick Ross. And so after the first song or two, I was pretty sold. Overall, this album is solid. It's not the best or my favorite Rick Ross album. There are definitely a couple for sure that are better. But it does cover all the core elements of the things that I like about Rick Ross and what I want to hear from a Rick Ross record. A lot of the songs on here, they definitely sound very expensive, luxurious, very designer. And that's kind of what you want to hear from Rick Ross. I think he has a very niche style in the game of hip-hop, in the sense that he does very well with live instrumentation, and he also does very well taking live instruments and organizing them in a way that's very glossy, and it just kind of sounds like a night at the Met Gala. Then there's also these, you know, regular Atlanta trap style records, and that's where the Yo Gotti and Future and Wale features tend to come in on this album. Gucci Mane as well shows up, and therein lies one of the biggest issues that I personally have with this album. Rick Ross definitely tries to present some duality on this record, in the sense that one song will sound so like it's supposed to be in a very expensive museum, and the next song will sound, you know, like it's straight out of the gutter Atlanta trap mafia music. And I think the idea here is to showcase his diversity and exhibit, you know, his flexibility and his versatility on, you know, the record, and kind of say, hey, I can do this and I can do that. Now, what I would personally prefer is for him to, in more cases, incorporate both sounds into one song. More often than not, he's going to go completely one way with a track, or go the complete opposite way with that track. And where this problem really rears its head is, you know, on those trap tracks, they're just not as good and well done as, you know, the glossier and prettier tracks that he decides to do. And again, it's really nice to see that duality, but at the same time, what I would appreciate more is to break the wall between those sounds and meld them in a way that's innovative. A rapper that comes to mind when I think of something like this is a Travis Scott. I think he does an extremely good job of taking these very artsy, very high-end, again, designer and high fashion type instrumentals and sounds, putting them together, and then taking someone like Young Thug or Rich Homie Quan, Quavo. These are the kinds of people that don't necessarily incarnate those sounds on their own, but the way that Travis Scott puts them together on these tracks sounds amazing, and it's so different than what we hear from anybody else. Overall, I do think this album is solid, though. There are a lot of moments on here that I find myself enjoying a lot. One of the best is his diss track towards Birdman. Rick Ross, coming up, looked up to Birdman and wanted to have what he had, and he explains that in that record. And he also kind of explains that, okay, now that I'm at this level, now it's like I see what you're doing and how you're operating, and it kind of shambles all, you know, what I thought and believed to be about you. And I think he has an interesting point of view on a lot of the, you know, fiasco that's going on, you know, at Cash Money Records right now. Santorini Grease is another track on here that really hits that boss vibe. The live instrumentation on here is so rich and decadent, and these songs just really come to life, you know, when they start playing. And I feel like I'm just looking at the Sistine Chapel with Rick Ross's big fat body just like painted over it, and he's got gold chains on and eating a chicken dinner, and it just sounds so expensive but like ghetto at the same time. And on top of all that, you know, there's just some really sweet features on here, as there are with most Rick Ross albums. Nas shows up, Raphael Sadiq is on the first song. Gucci Mane, like I said, shows up. Anthony Hamilton does a song with him and Meek Mill. Again, really interesting collabs that he puts together. If you were like me and you were kind of dragging your feet, or you were hesitant to listen to this album and you didn't think it was going to be very good, you know, I would say just pick out a couple songs that either people have told you are good, or the ones that I'm talking about in this review, and just go ahead and give them a shot and pick out a couple songs from there if you like it. And I think you'll find some stuff in here, some material in here that you will really enjoy. There definitely is some very, very good material on this album, and I'm glad that I listened to it. Another album that I actually got requests for by 2 or 3 people was the new Smino album, Black Swan. Smino is a part of a group of people in, you know, the new Chicago rap scene. This group of artists is definitely something new, and the kind of people that I'm talking about in this, first and foremost, the king of this is Chance the Rapper. After that, you have artists like No Name, Saba, Joey Purp. Mick Jenkins is even a bit in this kind of group, but not necessarily. Definitely Vic Mensa. And now, you know, another new artist to definitely get into the fold is Smino. Black Swan is definitely a long project. I don't remember exactly how many songs are on this album, but I'm gonna go back in, you know, post editing, and it's gonna show up right here. You know, I can definitely see why people find themselves attracted to this artist and this sound. Definitely the album. I myself find myself in the same boat. It definitely brings to the table what a lot of these other Chicago artists are bringing, and it's a sound that I really love, enjoy, and am happy to see kind of surge in its popularity. You know, I just think his flow style is a bit more bouncy, a little bit more wobbly than a lot of these other guys. He kind of brings a flow that, you know, maybe GoldLink would probably, you know, use. My biggest problem with this album is that there are so many songs on here that I like and that are good at a base level. There are just not enough songs on here that I love. And again, don't get me wrong, there are definitely those songs on here that I really enjoyed, that I love. It's just that one, there weren't enough of them, and two, the track list is so long that those songs have a hard time calling me back to the record itself. I kind of picked those songs out, and I've been listening to those songs, but I haven't been coming back to the album a lot. Now, this is definitely one of those albums that I can throw on while I'm doing something, and it's going to entertain me while my mind is kind of elsewhere. It's just that when I get finished with the album, there's not enough that I can remember distinctly about a lot of these songs. And with the exception of a few really great moments, a few really great tracks on this album, there's just not enough individualism and not enough songs that sound distinct enough to me that make me want to go back and listen to the whole thing and like give my whole mind's eye to it. Again, there are those really great moments. I think this album starts off on an excellent note with Wild Irish Roses. Definitely a premiere track for me. It finishes on a great note with Amphetamine too. And the second part to that track has a really sweet No Name feature. Anita is a great song and a great lead single from this album. Definitely a really solid choice to go with that song as the premiere track. The vocal work on this track I think is excellent. I think particularly on the chorus, Smino does a really good job of just selling the listener on that chorus and that main refrain. Puts a lot of passion into those vocals. It's fun, a tad goofy, and kind of puts some color into that song and the album as well. I also think it was a really smart move to make this the lead single, the premiere track of this album, just because I think it's a song that fans can really get behind. Again, the chorus is colorful, it's fun to sing, chant even, and again, I think people really gravitate towards this record. It was a great choice. Now, my personal favorite track on here is Silk Pillows. This song kind of paints the picture of two black lovers laying with one another in kind of these really nice satin bed sheets and pillowcases because they both have braided hair. And the chorus kind of sings this part about silk pillows keep my hair smooth, because if you didn't know, cotton sheets and pillows definitely damage and dry out your hair, particularly if you got black folks' hair. The reason I love this song so much is it takes something from black culture and it turns it into this trope to paint a picture of black love. Something that two black people share in a sensual moment with one another. It makes this moment sound so pretty and delicate between these two people, and the way that Akenya, who is featured on this track, and Smino talk to one another, I find myself so engrossed in their language. Overall, this is definitely an artist that I am going to keep on my radar. I'm very excited to hear more from, and again, this album is good across the board, and I definitely suggest you listen to it. It's just that, you know, I want to hear more songs that I find myself extremely infatuated with the way that I was talking about some of these other songs. Other than that, that's all I got for you guys. That is the first multi-review. I will try to do more of these. They'll come maybe once a month or so, or every so often. I'm definitely gonna have more reviews coming for you guys in the near future. There are a lot of albums coming out, so you'll just have to catch me then. Other than that, holla, peace, bye, whatever. Dev Del Molino, out.